Today on Commander Replay, Baral looks to maintain his perfect record. Can Baral defeat Oketra, Karlov, and Corona to get to a perfect 4-0 record? Find out next on Commander Replay. Alright everyone, we are back playing some Baral, Chief of Compliance. So far, played this deck 3 times, and I am 3-0, have never lost with it. Not a particularly good mono-blue player, Baral just happens to be really, really powerful. So even for someone like me who doesn't play a lot of blue, it's just really easy to win games. We have some lands, we have a Thought Vessel, we have a Dream Fracture, and a Frost Titan. We'll keep this hand. Let's take a look at what our opponents are playing. We have Oketra the True, is a 4-mana 3/6, double strike indestructible, can't attack or block unless you control at least 3 other creatures, and you can pay 4 to make a 1/1 white warrior creature with vigilance. Next we have Karlov of the Ghost Council, is a white and a black for a 2/2. Whenever you gain life, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Karlov, pay a white and a black, remove 6 +1/+1 counters from Karlov, and exile target creature. So Karlov, usually a life gain deck, can be pretty powerful. Having the ability to just remove any of your opponent's commanders, kind of at will, is really, really strong, and sometimes Karlov just gets massive. And then finally, Corona the False God, 5-color deck. Don't know if it's actually a Corona deck, or if they're just playing 5-color good stuff, and they may never cast Corona. We'll find out as the game goes on. It'd be super interesting to see if they're doing the Corona Pinball deck, something that I've always wanted to try out. So, Mana Vault for the Karlov opponent. And the Oketra player starts with a turn 1 Sol Ring and a turn 1 Skull Clamp. Seems pretty good. So like I said, I'm currently undefeated with Baral, and not for any reason other than Baral is just stupidly powerful and kind of broken. But because I'm trying to keep the undefeated thing going, regardless of what happens in this game, this video is going to get posted, so win or loss, it's getting posted to the channel. Ooh, and that's an Imperial Seal for the Corona opponent. So our turn 1, we draw a Coral Atoll. It's not going to be super helpful on turn 1. We'll start with a tap land. We'll play the Myriad Landscape, and we will pass the turn. I didn't go over Baral, by the way. Baral is 1 and a blue for a 1/3. Instants and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may draw a card and discard a card. So with Baral, you have built-in cost reduction, which is really big. Like, especially once you get something like the Blue Medallion into play, your spells get so unbelievably cheap. You can do more things than your opponents can with the mana that you have, and it's just really crazy. And then you have the loot ability whenever you counter stuff, so also very, very powerful. Oketra the True coming down for the Oketra opponent. Oketra's another commander that I've been meaning to try out at some point. She's just not super high on the priority list of commanders that I've been trying to get to, but the thing that's confusing about Oketra as well is, do you run Oketra or do you run Heliod, God of the Sun? In my opinion, I think Heliod's probably just a little bit better, but I think Oketra is still cool. I think you want to build around her just a little bit differently than you would build around Heliod, even though they both care about tokens. With Oketra, you can much easier justify running some equipments, and Heliod, I think it's going to be pretty tough. So, Karlov of the Ghost Council coming into play for the Karlov opponent, and a doubling cube for the Corona opponent. So, back to our turn. Right here, I think I just want to get some mana ramp going, so I'm going to play the Thought Vessel, and we draw a Talrand. Talrand is really nice. Talrand can flip-flop with Baral pretty easily. They both care about the same things, and you can build around them very similarly. So if you're building either Baral or Talrand, having the other one available to switch in as your commander can be a good thing, just in case you get bored. Or Baral sends a certain kind of message that none of your spells are going to resolve. Talrand isn't much better, but I think it's slightly less threatening in that front, although the Drakes do add up very quickly. Ooh, Angelic Purge on Karlov. I mean, I don't know, fairly aggressive, like, so opponent had to sacrifice a plains to cast the Angelic Purge. For the most part, it seems like you don't really need to run Angelic Purge because you have things like Oblivion Stone and Oblation and other really good removal. I guess the thought is that because opponent should have a lot of tokens later in the game, they can just sacrifice a token to use Angelic Purge. But that's a pretty aggressive use of Angelic Purge and sacking the land to take down Karlov. But Karlov can be really, really strong. I've just been overrun by Karlov a handful of times in both paper and online. And Athreos, God of Passage coming into play, is a 3-mana 5/4. Has indestructible, is not a creature if your devotion to white and black is less than 7, and whenever another creature you own dies, return it to your hand unless target opponent pays 3 life. You might remember Athreos' God of Passage from when I ran into him on the first episode of EDH Lounge. If you haven't seen that already, I'll post a link in the description below. Rites of Flourishing for the Corona opponent. So that'll be good for us because we have a lot of lands in our hands, so we'll be able to get our lands down quicker, and giving Baral card draw is probably never a great idea. So it looks like the Corona deck is on some sort of high mana plan. That'd be the reason that you run Doubling Cube and Rites. There's a Dissipate, and there's an Island. So this turn, I think we'll go Island, Island, and cast Baral. So that way, if I'm worried that Corona might try to slam something huge within the next turn or two, maybe this turn, maybe the following turn after that. So it's only turn 3 currently. So by turn 5, I expect that Corona probably has something big that they want to slam down. So having our counter spells up and ready to go is going to be a good thing. This Coral Atoll has amazing art in my opinion, but man, the cost of coming into play untapped and having to return an untapped land is pretty steep. I may cut this for a basic island, because especially in the Baral deck where Baral costs 2 mana, which is probably the time that you would want to play this land, and it just seems kind of awkward, so definitely probably pull that out. So if the Oketra opponent drew lands this turn, they'll have the ability to catch back up on land. If they did not draw lands, they're probably in a world of hurt. But unless of course they play a Cataclysm, which is definitely not going to resolve. We'll send the Dream Fracture. They can draw a card. Maybe they can make their land drops. Don't necessarily want players to lose just because they're not making land drops, but we could go with the Dissipate right there, but we'll go with the Dream Fracture just because I also want to get another card back into our hand. So we get to loot with Baral because we countered something. Cataclysm is a card that I really do enjoy. If you're playing a white deck, especially mono white or red white, I play a lot of red white as you guys know, it stops opponents from going too big. Like if there's a green opponent, if you let a green opponent go unchecked, eventually they're just going to play Avenger of Zendikar with 1,000,000 lands and basically out-resource you. Where I'm going to discard the Coral Atoll just because, yeah, it just seems it's going to be tough to get down. Hopefully we'll draw into another land on our next turn so we can keep playing 2 lands a turn. But yeah, the Cataclysm keeps players from being able to go too big. So the player that wins usually ends up playing 3 or 4 spells in the same turn, and it takes a lot of resources to do that, and Cataclysm just completely shuts that off. Now, it can get awkward. If your opponent has a bigger threat than you on board, then Cataclysm can be really bad because you've also now destroyed your resources to be able to get rid of whatever threat that they had. So it can be very awkward. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not as good, and it's usually depending if you're the one with the biggest threat on board or if someone else is. But definitely a card that I enjoy, and I definitely find myself in a lot of situations where I'm like, oh, if I just had a Cataclysm right now. Karlov coming back into play. Plays a Scoured Barrens, gains a life. Karlov gets some counters. We do have this rapid hybridization. We may need to shoot down Karlov at some point, but if other players start slamming big threats, then Karlov will probably focus on them and not on Baral. We have this Merchant Scroll, and I'll be honest, I don't even know what to go find with it. Again, I'm not super experienced with Baral, and I'm also not a great mono blue player. So knowing when to tutor and what to tutor for can be kind of a challenge when you're playing a deck style or deck color that you're just not used to playing that much. And on that account, I might hold this until I figure out what we really need. There's a Thran Dynamo, so lots and lots of mana for the Corona opponent. Definitely going to need to leave this Dissipate up when it comes back to their turn. We could use another island. We need to get our blue mana going a bit better. Chromatic Lantern for the Corona opponent. Oath of Druids, you say? Oh boy. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player chooses a target player who controls more creatures than he or she does. The first player may reveal cards from the top of his or her library until he or she reveals a creature card. If he or she does, that player puts the card onto the battlefield and all their cards revealed this way into the graveyard. That's a thing. Can we Merchant Scroll for something to get rid of that Oath of Druids? I don't know that there's a great way to kill enchantments in blue. Ugin is one way to do it, but we're still a bunch of mana off from Ugin. Well, I guess we have the rapid hybridization. There's a Rise from the Tides. Telepathy's cool. Unfortunately, we didn't catch a land. We didn't catch that extra blue that I was hoping for. Play this Homeward Path. Kind of want to slam the Telepathy. The other option is we leave up Dissipate and rapid hybridization, which means we need to leave all of our blue mana untapped. I think I like that play better than slamming the Telepathy. I think we can go, so knowing what's on our opponent's hands can be really important. Yeah, we'll play the Telepathy and just reside to the fact that we can only Dissipate or rapid hybridization and won't be able to run both at the same time. So yeah, there's some stuff. in our opponent's hand. We will pass the turn, leaving up all of our mana. What we'll do eventually, we will crack our Myriad Landscape and get some more islands into play. And then next turn, we should be in better shape with our blue mana sources. But right now, I think holding up Dissipate is going to be pretty important. Taking a look at that opponent's hand. Also, we should definitely swing into this Corona opponent, since they can potentially do some really scary things with this Oath of Druids. I'll arrange the hands in order of turn of the player. Oh god, please don't. It's gonna be terrible. Okay. So put that over there. So the Oketra opponent has an Agrian Find, which returns artifacts or enchantments from their graveyard to the hand. They're casting Shell of the Last Kappa, exile target instant or sorcery that targets you, and you may cast a card exiled with it. I'm gonna have 6 right here. I'm completely okay if they, for some reason, they decide to slam that Planar Cleansing. That does not bother me in the least. The Beacon of Immortality, I'd probably let that go through. Unless I'm sitting on an abundance of counterspells and mana, which we're not at the moment, I'll probably let Beacon of Immortality go through. The Planar Cleansing, I would let resolve at the moment. So the Karlov opponent has 2 tutors in the hand. They have Demonic Tutor and Vampiric Tutor. Also a Sunscorch Regent, and then, the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale, huh? That's a real magic card. So Karlov is going to Vampiric Tutor. Finally, looking at Corona's hand, they have a Vorinclex in hand, so Vorinclex is also a big problem. So Vorinclex is the thing that'll probably get countered, most likely. So if you guys haven't played with Telepathy, it's definitely a card worth checking out. If you like messing with the normal game state of no one really knows what's in opponent's hands, Telepathy is a beautiful way to do it. But it does get awkward. When someone has a board sweeper like Planar Cleansing in hand, then no one plays anything because everyone's afraid of just playing their stuff into the board wipe. So it can really slow the game down and do some awkward things, but it is a silly card. You should try it once. I'm not saying you should play it every game because it can be really frustrating for your opponents. But it's interesting. It's an interesting card worth checking out. So opponent draws a Chalice of Life and a Necropotence, huh? Man, Necro's pretty scary also. So opponent plays their Chalice of Life, still has Necro mana up, and they're going to play their Sunscorch Regent. Sunscorch Regent, pretty good with Karlov. Drifting Meadow, huh? Comes into play tapped, add a white. Yeah, never seen that one before. Cascading Cataracts. Why would you need Cascading Cataracts? Oh, it's indestructible. Okay, that makes sense. So Oketra probably playing a land destruction deck. So Karlov swinging into the Corona opponent, and Corona goes down to 31, 6 commander. It's now Corona's turn. They're going to get an Oath of Druids trigger. Let's see what nastiness is coming down. Oh, Magus of the Vineyard. That's not so bad. Opponent also draws a Heartwood Storyteller. Opponent's going to play the Heartwood Storyteller. Sunscorch Regent's going to get a trigger, and that'll give Karlov a trigger. Let's always yield to those abilities. So the one problem with playing Baral on Magic Online is that you can't F6 your turn ever, and that can be kind of frustrating. Opponent's going to try Vorinclex. Vorinclex is absolutely not going to resolve. So Dissipate on the Vorinclex. Karlov's going to get a trigger, and Heartwood Storytell's going to get a trigger. So each of our opponents are going to get to draw. And in the meantime, we will sacrifice our Myriad Landscape, go find ourselves some islands, and this will be one of the brief times that we actually get to F6. Corona opponent draws a land. Oketra opponent draws a land. Everyone drew lands off the Heartwood Storyteller. How about that? Let opponent know that I won't counter Planar Cleansing. And we'll use the Baral ability to loot. We draw a Consecrated Sphinx, huh? Alright, well, that means we gotta discard something. What do we discard? Frost Titan's fine, I guess, but we'll get rid of the Frost Titan. It's kind of expensive, and it doesn't just outright win us the game, or come close to doing that. Consecrated Sphinx, on the other hand, for 6 mana, doesn't directly win you the game, but the amount of cards that you draw with it probably does. I'm not going to run the Consecrated Sphinx out there just yet because of the Planar Cleansing. And the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale is on the battlefield, so we got to pay some mana to keep our Baral alive. We're going to get an Oath of Druids trigger also. So this game is shaping up to be rather crazy. We have Telepathy on board. Let's see if we can make people's hands smaller. Things are getting pretty crowded. So everyone has more creatures than we do. We'll choose the Karlov opponent, and let's see if we hit something nice. There aren't a ton of creatures in this deck, but the ones that are in here are pretty good. So if we just oathed our way into Guile, that would be amazing. Trinket Mage is fine. That gives us some more mana. What do we have for artifacts? We have an Expedition map, a Mana Crypt, and a Sol Ring. Is there any reason to go for the Expedition map? Academy Ruins. Academy Ruins would be the reason to go for the expedition map, but right now I think I just want the mana. We don't have the Mindslaver yet, so we can't Mindslaver lock, so I think I'd really just rather have the little mana boost, because right now we're drawing extra cards off of the Rites of Flourishing, and we're limited by the number of things that we can do mana-wise, is basically, that's sort of the long pole in the tent. So we're going to get a Magus of the Vineyard trigger, and we'll get some extra mana to help with our mana troubles. Play this island. The question is, does opponent play the Planar Cleansing or not this turn? I'm not sure. In fact, we may even hold the Sol Ring for a minute. Unfortunately, we don't have any counter spells. That's not great. We'll play the Party Jace so we can get some more card draw. Another Heartwood Storytell trigger and a Sunscorch trigger. Opponent acknowledged that I won't counter their Planar Cleansing. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to play it, but just that if they decide to, it'll go through. Planar Cleansing would unfortunately wipe up Jace. I'm not going to use the party mode on Party Jace right now because I suspect that the Planar Cleansing is going to come down and it's just going to get wiped away anyway. If I thought that the Planar Cleansing wasn't coming down, then I would definitely use the party mode on Jace. Although with Sunscorch region, it doesn't really matter either way, I guess. So we'll target ourselves, be stingy with the Party Jace. There's a Veldakan Orrery. That's a magic card. How many cards do we have in hand now? 7. We'll hold on to the Sol Ring, because I think that Planar Cleansing is going to come down, and we'll just leave our 1 green floating. Nothing much we can do about it. Can't really attack into anything, so pass the turn. We actually do... we probably should have Merchant Scrolled for a counter spell. That would have made sense. We still have Rapid Hybridization, so that's good news. So opponent's getting hit with the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale triggers. Also, the Expedition map that we skipped up could have also went and got a Strip Mine to deal with the Tabernacle. So, like I said, Karlov is already a 14-14 through no significant amount of effort. Sunscorch region is also an 8-7. Very good magic card. And, yeah, I'm ready for this Planar Cleansing. So, opponents can use their Skull Clamp. Makes sense. Get themselves some extra cards. And here comes the Planar Cleansing. So, we're going to lose the Telepathy. We're also going to lose our Jace. Well, we're going to lose everything that's not a land, really. But the Telepathy is giving us a huge amount of information. So we need to be careful of... So opponent draws a Commander Sphere. Ooh, we get a Heartwood Storyteller trigger. That's nice. We get an island. There's the island that we missed last turn. Another Karlov trigger. The Corona opponent has 2 lands. Karlov opponent drew more lands and a Mind Stone. And there's an Aetherios trigger going on the stack. Let's see who they target. Targets the Corona opponent. See if they decide to pay the life. They probably should. Sunscorch region is really powerful in the Karlov deck. Does not pay the life. Opponent gets Sunscorch region back. Well, now that makes it up to us to counter or kill it. So Rise from the Tides gives us a black zombie creature for each instant or sorcery in our graveyard. Let's see how many currently 1, 2, just 2. So not really set up to play Rise from the Tides yet. Probably need to fire off a couple more things first. So opponent decides to get back their Skull Clamp with the Agravian Find, and they also run out a Mind Stone. So I'm actually very happy with that Planar Cleansing, because I really don't know what's coming with the Oath of Druids, and I can't actually counter the Oath of Druids trigger. So very happy with that Planar Cleansing. Karlov was also starting to get out of control, so pretty good board reset right there. Planar Cleansing is another card that I don't think sees enough play. Being able to destroy problematic enchantments. Enchantments are usually the thing that are a problem, like I was talking about the Oath of Druids. By turn 5 or 6 in a Commander game, at least one player usually has some problematic enchantment out. So Planar Cleansing, get rid of all the creatures, get rid of all the enchantments, and of course, all other non-land permanents as well, but that is a big thing to consider. Enchantment removal. That's a Mana Flare. It's going to help with our mana. The Corona opponent had 2 lands in hand before the Planar Cleansing took down the Telepathy. Assumingly, they've played 1, so that means they have 1 land in hand and whatever else they drew. So Corona comes into play. Opponent has still a bunch of floating mana, and just lets it go. So Corona is attacking the Oketra opponent, and Corona's now an 8-8. Oh yeah, that's pretty good. So we're going to gain control of Corona right here. Sweet. We drew a Disdainful Stroke. That will be very helpful at some point. Only able to play single lands per turn, but play this island. Actually, Homeward Path can be really good against the Corona. If someone decides to attack us with it, then we can just tap the Homeward Path and control will change, and it'll fizzle the attack. So that's something to think about. Oh, right, Mana Flare's in play. Let's get the Sol Ring down. Let's get Baral back into play. Play the Merchant Scroll. I'm just going to go find some good counter magic because I'm going to play our Consecrated Sphinx and I want to be able to protect it. So don't currently have Mana Drain. It's about to be reprinted, so I sold it in fear of losing value. So Counterspell is the next best thing that we have. And we will just slam our Consecrated Sphinx. Start drawing all the cards. If we don't expect anything to happen to the Mana Flare, we could run out the Vildakan Orrery. Yeah, we'll do that. Hope that Mana Flare is fine so that we are still able to cast our Counterspell. Although we do have the Disdainful Stroke also. Karlov's pretty strong. We should definitely attack into Karlov. Karlov still has a Tutor left and a Necropotence. It's all very powerful. So we'll use the Corona to pump itself up. It's now an 8-8, swinging into the Karlov. And pass the turn. Oketra gains control of the Corona. And Oketra's also going to have to pay 1 for the Tabernacle of the Pendrell Veil trigger. When it comes to these old cards from Legends, I tend to prefer the original art, but this one's actually kind of cool. I think they did a pretty good job of capturing the spirit of the original, but in the new modern digital way that they do art. We get a Consecrated Sphinx trigger. We draw a Lost in the Mist and a Recurring Insight. So now we want to find our Reliquary Tower, and we can just Recurring Insight for 1,000,000 cards. So Oketra's gonna make a creature. Oketra puts the Skull Clamp on the Corona. So opponent could pay 4 to make another token, and they would be able to attack with their Oketra. Let's see if that's what they do. Yep, so that's what they do. Oketra can now attack and block. I hope we didn't make ourselves too big of a threat by playing this Consecrated Sphinx. I mean, it's an extremely powerful card. Hopefully everyone's still looking at the Corona opponent and or Karlov. All right, good. So the Oketra opponent swinging in their stuff to the Karlov opponent, which is exactly what we want to happen. Karlov, because it's also a life gain deck, is able to negate attacks really well. That's another thing. So in addition to being able to remove creatures almost at will, they also tend to have a really high life total. So putting as much damage on Karlov as you can is a good thing. For some reason, the Corona chose Angel as the chosen type instead of God or Avatar. Probably a misclick. Beacon of Immortality. I'm going to let it resolve. Opponent goes up to 64. I mean, it's fine. It means that you can't Alpha Strike them very quickly, and they'll have a number of turns to recover from whatever you're doing. But since we only have one Counterspell this turn, I don't think that's the card that we need to counter. Opponent's going to Skull Clamp. Draw some cards. Oh yeah, and opponent's Skull Clamp works great with our Consecrated Sphinx. So we get to draw 4 more cards. There's some lands. Reliquary Tower is the one we want, and a Gaia Reach. More lands and a Gaia Reach. Could use that Rites of Flourishing to get the 2 lands per turn. That'd be nice, but that is long gone. So Corona trigger going on the stack and a Karlov trigger, or a Tabernacle of Pendrell Veil trigger. And we're going to draw some more cards with our Consecrated Sphinx. God. Since I don't play blue very much, Consecrated Sphinx is just a crazy, crazy card. Not something that I personally get to play often just because I don't play blue, but man, it is powerful. Opponent's going to Demonic Tutor. We'll let that go. Depending on what they tutor for, we might counter that. But Soul's Attendant, meh, that's fine. Nyx Fleece Ram, you can have that one as well. It is life gain and it will power up Karlov a bit, but meh, not super, super worried about that. We do have more removal than you'd think a blue deck would have. We still have the Rapid Hybridization, but we do have the thing that turns them all upside down. Curse of Swine or whatever that is. Let the Sunscorched Region go through. There's also some Mass Bounce. Necropotence, on the other hand, is not going through. And so right now, last turn, based on what the Corona opponent played, they played their Corona, and we knew they had some lands in hand. Unless Corona top decks something really good, I don't expect them to have something really, really powerful. So counter the Necropotence, and ooh, that's a rewind. We'll just pitch a land. We have tons of lands now. Could use our Reliquary Tower. Karlov still swinging back at the Oketra opponent. That is good news. They didn't seem to be too upset with us for countering the Necropotence. Necropotence in a life gain deck means that they will just draw through their deck. They'll probably draw 10 cards at a time, which isn't all that dissimilar from what we're doing, but we're the blue deck. We're supposed to draw 10 cards at a time, right? So we're shields down. We're going to F6. Corona is going to untap and return to the Corona opponent. We will draw some more cards with Consecrated Sphinx. That's an Insidious Will and a Cage Sun. So maybe we needed to leave up the counterspell on Corona. Let's see what happens right here. Corona's going to come in at us. We'll just take it. We could block with Baral and then just recast Baral, but I kind of want to leave that mana up. We're still at 40, so we have a little bit of wiggle room to take some damage. Down to 32, 8 commander damage. Corona taps all of their mana, making me think that I wish I didn't use that counter. Oh, they passed They tapped and passed. Oh, that's amazing. So we're going to gain control of Corona. This turn I'll probably just send the Corona back at the Corona. We need to pay to keep our creatures. That's a right of replication. Anything worth right of replicating? Consecrated Sphinx is probably the best card right now, but that's not exactly the card I want to right of replicate. We'll get to draw a lot of things, but we actually won't be able to cast all of the things that we draw. So right now we'll get down the Cage Sun. Another trigger for Sunscorch, and be another trigger for Karlov as well. Actually, well, yeah, maybe we just right of replicate on the Consecrated Sphinx, and actually no, we'll get the Talran down. Oh, or we could, so choosing blue. Well, we have Veldakan Orrery, so we can do things at instant speed. Man. Send Corona back at itself and the Consecrated Sphinx at Oketra. So have the Corona pump itself. I'm just going to pass with 15 mana open. No big deal. We need to discard down to hand size. Probably should have played one more thing. Oops. As much as I don't love doing this, we'll pitch the land. I do like making all my land drops. Recurring Insight doesn't seem needed right now, because we'll still get at least one more draw trigger out of Consecrated Sphinx. So Oketra is going to gain control of the Corona, and they will have to pay some mana to keep their creatures. So another Consecrated Sphinx trigger for us. Could use another land in there. We need to always yield to that. We draw a Bribery. Ooh, Bribery's a thing. And a Personal Tutor. So unfortunately, this was a short game timer. It was a 25-minute game, and Oketra is now running low on time. And we're at 10 minutes, but with this deck, we can burn through that very quickly because we need to leave up all of our counterspells. Potentially, we could Bribery the Corona opponent, and let's see, 18 mana. Yeah, we can Bribery the biggest thing in our... Oh, all right. This is going to get tricky. Corona's coming in at us. Do we block or do we take? I'm going to fire the Homeward Path. It's going to take down our mana a little bit. It'll save us the combat damage right here, and then we'll just rely on Baral's cost reduction ability. So if we Bribery for the biggest thing in our opponent's deck, and then copy it a whole bunch of times with Right of Replication, that should more or less be game. That's a Divine Reckoning. Interesting. Do we keep our Baral or do we keep our Consecrated Sphinx? I think I'm going to keep Baral because that allows us to potentially win the game next turn. Consecrated Sphinx is great, but it's already done its work. We've drawn... We don't need to draw more cards at this point. We have the ones we need. We just need to be able to cast them. It will slow Karlov down, though, and that is good because Karlov's getting crazy. So opponents deciding to keep their Karlov. We'll keep Baral. And a bunch of Aetherios triggers go on the stack, all targeting the Corona opponent. Oketra's going to make some tokens. Oketra's got 2 minutes left on their clock. They will likely time out before they can kill all of us, which is unfortunate, but that's what happens when you slow play, especially, like, there's no reason that you can't F6 in a mono white deck. In that Oketra deck, it seems very easy to just tap out all your mana and F8. Like, there's no real reason that you need to not do that. I mean, we're playing Baral, and we can't F6 during our opponent's turn, and we're still at 9 minutes on the clock versus their 2. So just a lot of slow play out of the Oketra opponent. Karlov must pay the upkeep triggers for their creatures. Karlov is going to exile Oketra. Soul's Attendant, huh? We'll let it go. Commander Sphere, let that go. Nyx Fleece Ram will let that go as well. Karlov exiled another creature for the Oketra. I missed exactly what creature it was. Sunscorch Regent coming back into play. Gonna get a Soul's Attendant trigger, and that'll get a Karlov trigger. So Karlov back to 2 counters, that's good. It does take them 6 counters to be able to exile things, which means that we're still set up to pull off this Bribery combo. Karlov sending everything into us, and I don't think we can take that, so right now we're going to Bribery and see what our opponent has. I assume that there's got to be either a Sun Titan or a Grave Titan in their deck, and that will be plenty fine to Right of Replicate. Bastion Protector, meh. Cliffhaven, Bloodgift Demon, Bloodgift Demon's interesting, although our life is not really where we want that to be. Our gamble did not pay off here. There's a lot of legendary creatures in here. We could Kokusho, that's a thing. Felidar Sovereign, not going to really do much for us. Maybe we were better off with the Corona opponent. Definitely not impressed. I think Kokusho is our best bet. How much damage are we taking? We're taking about 20. But we can Right of Replicate something else, I guess, that's already in play. I think Sunscorch Region is it. That gains us life and just gets huge very quickly. So Right of Replication kicked on Sunscorch Region. A bunch of triggers for Karlov. We've still got 2 mana up. Karlov's a 23-23. We're definitely going to throw the Kokusho in front of that. The rest we will take. So we go up to 37. Opponent targets the Corona opponent with the A3O's trigger from the Kokusho. Makoro, Center of the Sea. We draw a land. Could use the counterspell right there, just to make sure we don't get blown out by something. Corona coming into us. We will take this one. Actually, we should block. We should definitely block. Yeah, it would be lethal if we took it. So throw away Sunscorch in front. Defense of the Heart. We're going to get a bunch of Sunscorch triggers. Okay, we gain control of Corona. Ooh, Corona can pump all of our dragons. That's good. So we need to pay to keep our dragons in play. Pay more to keep our guys in play. Still haven't found a strip mine yet. Keep our Baral. Run out this personal tutor. Probably going to look for a Cyclonic Rift. Just to keep everyone else off their stuff. That should give us the tempo we need to close out this game. Clone Legion's also a thing. Apparently we don't have Cyclonic Rift. Oh, sorceries only. Blatant Thievery, what does that do for us? So we draw our Curse of Swine, play an island. So if these are all 8/8s, that's 24, that'd be 32 damage. Karlov would just barely survive. We will take down the Corona opponent, send the rest into Karlov, get the Karlov trigger, put it on Dragon. Next, play the Curse of Swine. Exile all of our opponent's creatures. X is 6. Pay some mana for that. Actually, get our Talran down. Sunscorch trigger. Oketra scoops it up. Soul's Attendant trigger. Karlov trigger. Now, play the Curse of Swine. Exile all of Karlov's stuff. Pay 4. Opponent has a bunch of 2/2s. We get a Drake. And I think from this point we have 6 since we are running low on time. Karlov. Karlov scoops it up. Nice. And the Corona will die to combat damage. Nice. There it is. So, Baral, 4-0. Yeah. So there it is. Baral, 4-0. Like I said, I am not an especially good mono blue player. Baral is just really easy to build a broken deck with. Basically, you put any good top-end blue card in there and just counter your way through the game until you're able to resolve it. It's pretty straightforward in my opinion. But yeah, 4-0. So wasn't sure if we were going to get there right off the bat. There were some things that were making me nervous, like the Oath of Druids. I was fully expecting Eldrazi to start popping down, and that's kind of hard for us to deal with. So if that was the case, we would have been in real trouble, but that's not what happened. And we were able to pull this one out. So again, just a couple key counterspells. I think we played 2 or 3. But at some big points, things like Necropotence, a Cataclysm that we stopped, and a Vorinclex. And then after that, it was just a matter of Consecrated Sphinx, drawing a million cards, and then doing the Bribery and the Rite of Replication to finish things out. So anyway, that's been Baral. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching.